The moment the hotel staff decided she did not belong there, they unknowingly turned an ordinary check-in into the beginning of a lesson nobody in the lobby would forget. Evelyn Harper stepped through the revolving doors of the Grand Crescent Hotel just after 6 in the evening. She wore a simple beige coat and carried a small travel bag that looked far less expensive than the designer luggage surrounding her. Within seconds, several heads turned. Not because she caused a scene, but because she seemed out of place among the luxury brands, tailored suits, and polished appearances filling the marble lobby. Behind the front desk, Monica Hayes noticed her immediately. Monica had managed hotel operations for years and believed she could identify guests before they ever reached the counter. Wealth, status, importance. She thought she could read all of it in a glance. Her eyes moved from Evelyn's coat to her bag and back again. Then she quietly leaned toward a younger employee. Please verify her reservation before she gets too comfortable. The employee nodded. Unfortunately, two nearby guests overheard the comment. One exchanged an amused look with the other. The social pressure began instantly. Evelyn approached the front desk with a calm smile. Good evening. I have a reservation. Monica returned a professional smile, though the warmth never reached her eyes. Of course. May I have your name? Evelyn Harper. Monica typed into the system. Her fingers paused. Then she searched again. Nothing appeared immediately. A subtle shift crossed her face. One moment. Evelyn waited patiently. Monica searched a third time. Still nothing. The delay was beginning to attract attention. Several guests nearby slowed their conversations. One businessman, standing at the concierge desk, glanced over his shoulder. Monica looked back at Evelyn. Are you certain this reservation was made under your name? The question carried more doubt than curiosity. Evelyn nodded. I am certain. Monica tried again. No result appeared. Her patience began fading. This is one of the busiest hotels in the city. Reservation errors happen, but usually guests confirm details before arriving. A few people nearby heard the comment. The implication was obvious. Evelyn remained calm. I understand. The lack of defensiveness somehow made the situation more uncomfortable. Most people would have argued by now. Evelyn simply waited. Monica folded her arms. Do you happen to have the confirmation number? Evelyn reached into her purse and searched briefly. While she did, her attention drifted toward a large black and white photograph hanging behind the front desk. The image showed the hotel shortly after it first opened decades ago. Her eyes lingered on it for a moment. Then she smiled faintly. They finally restored the original entrance. Monica looked confused. Excuse me. Evelyn pointed toward the photograph. For years there was a stone fountain directly beneath that archway. Most people forgot it was ever there. A bellman nearby froze. How did you know that? Evelyn glanced at him. It was beautiful. I was disappointed when they removed it. The bellman stared. The fountain had been removed before he was born. Few employees even knew it existed. Monica noticed the reaction immediately. For the first time, uncertainty entered her expression, but only briefly. She quickly dismissed it. Interesting, she said. Still, we need to locate your reservation. Behind Evelyn, whispers continued spreading through the lobby. Some guests seemed entertained. Others looked curious. And somewhere beyond the hotel's glass entrance doors, a black sedan had just pulled up carrying a man whose arrival would change the entire evening. The black sedan came to a smooth stop beneath the hotel's covered entrance, but nobody inside the lobby paid much attention yet. Their focus remained fixed on the unusual scene unfolding at the front desk. Monica Hayes continued searching through reservation records while maintaining the professional smile she used whenever frustration needed to remain hidden. Unfortunately, the longer she searched, the more obvious her doubts became. Evelyn Harper stood quietly on the opposite side of the counter. Her patience only seemed to make the situation more uncomfortable. Several guests nearby had stopped pretending not to listen. A woman waiting for valet service glanced repeatedly toward the desk. A businessman sitting in the lounge lowered his newspaper. The atmosphere had shifted from ordinary check-in activity to public curiosity. Monica finally looked up from the screen. I still cannot locate your reservation. Evelyn nodded calmly. Then perhaps it was booked under another name. Monica tilted her head slightly. Another name? The question carried a subtle challenge. Evelyn seemed unbothered. That happens sometimes. Monica folded her hands. Do you know which name? Before Evelyn could answer, a young front desk employee quietly approached Monica. I found something. Monica immediately turned toward him. The employee pointed at another reservation list. There is a suite reserved tonight under a private account. The guest instructions are restricted. Monica frowned. Restricted reservations existed, but they were typically reserved for celebrities, executives, or owners. Her eyes moved back toward Evelyn almost instinctively. Then she dismissed the thought. Nothing about Evelyn matched the image she associated with VIP guests. That cannot be related, Monica said. The employee hesitated. Perhaps we should verify. Monica shook her head. Not yet. The exchange did not go unnoticed. Several nearby guests exchanged curious looks. Evelyn remained silent. Instead of reacting to the conversation, she turned her attention toward another section of the lobby. A large bronze plaque displayed the hotel's founding year. She smiled faintly. They kept the original dedication plaque. The bellman who had spoken earlier looked surprised again. Most guests never noticed that. Evelyn stepped closer to the display. The lettering was restored beautifully. The first version was much darker. The bellman stared. How do you know that? Evelyn's expression softened. I remember it. The answer created another wave of confusion. The plaque had been restored nearly 20 years earlier. Even many long-time employees knew little about it. Monica noticed the growing interest among her staff and immediately tried to regain control of the situation. Mrs. Harper, perhaps while we sort this out, you would be more comfortable waiting in the seating area. The words sounded polite. The meaning was clear. Please step aside. A hush fell over the nearest part of the lobby. Guests understood exactly what had happened. Evelyn had effectively been removed from the front desk without anyone openly saying so. For the first time, a trace of sympathy appeared on several faces. Yet Evelyn simply smiled. Of course. She moved toward a nearby chair without complaint. The reaction surprised everyone. Most people would have argued. Some would have demanded a manager. Evelyn did neither. She sat quietly and looked around the lobby as though she were revisiting an old memory. Meanwhile, outside the hotel entrance, the driver of the black sedan stepped aside and opened the rear passenger door. A distinguished older man emerged and immediately looked toward the building. The moment his eyes settled on the lobby windows, his expression changed. Without saying a word, William Carter quickened his pace toward the entrance, unaware that within minutes the assumptions filling his hotel lobby were about to collapse. William Carter entered the lobby with the confident stride of a man who had spent decades building one of the most respected hotels in the state. Employees immediately noticed him. Several straightened their posture. Others offered polite greetings as he passed. Normally, his arrival generated quiet admiration and little disruption. Tonight was different. Before anyone could approach him, William's attention locked onto a single person sitting near the lobby windows. His pace slowed. Then it quickened again. The reaction was subtle, but not subtle enough. Monica Hayes noticed it first. The bellman noticed it second. Within moments, several employees were watching William instead of their guests. Evelyn Harper remained seated, calmly observing the lobby around her. She seemed completely unaware that the owner of the hotel had just entered the building. Or perhaps she was aware and simply did not react. William crossed half the lobby without speaking to anyone. A concierge stepped forward to greet him. William barely acknowledged him. His focus never left Evelyn. Monica felt a small knot tighten in her stomach. Something about the situation suddenly felt different. Nearby guests began noticing the unusual behavior as well. The businessman who had been reading his newspaper lowered it completely. The woman waiting for valet service turned away from the entrance and followed William's path through the lobby. Even the younger front desk employee looked confused. Who was he going to see? He whispered. Nobody answered. William continued walking. Meanwhile, Monica attempted to regain control of the front desk. She turned back toward the reservation system. Let us search one more time. The younger employee nodded. This time he opened the restricted booking profile again. His eyes widened. Monica. She barely looked up. What? The employee pointed at the screen. You need to see this. Monica stepped closer. The reservation details were still partially protected, but one line had become visible after an internal update. Her expression changed immediately. She read it once, then twice. The color slowly faded from her face. That cannot be correct. The employee swallowed. I think it is. Before Monica could respond, a sudden silence spread across the lobby. Not complete silence. The kind of silence that happens when dozens of people simultaneously stop talking, because something unexpected is unfolding nearby. Monica looked up. William Carter had reached Evelyn. Guests watched from every direction. Employees froze. Even the bell carts seemed abandoned. The entire lobby became a stage without warning. Evelyn slowly stood. William stopped in front of her. For one brief moment, nobody moved. Then a warm smile spread across his face. A smile filled with genuine respect. Evelyn. The single word echoed through the silence. Several employees exchanged startled glances. William extended both hands. Evelyn smiled and accepted the greeting. It has been a long time, William. The familiarity hit the lobby like a shockwave. Monica felt her heartbeat accelerate. Guests who had assumed Evelyn was an inconvenience now stared openly. The social hierarchy they thought they understood was beginning to fracture. William shook his head with disbelief. Nobody told me you were arriving today. Evelyn laughed softly. That was intentional. A few people nearby smiled at the exchange. It felt natural, comfortable. Old friends reconnecting after years apart. William glanced toward the front desk and immediately noticed the expressions on his employees' faces. His smile faded slightly. Then he looked back at Evelyn. Please tell me they took good care of you. The question sounded simple. Yet the moment it entered the air, every employee in the lobby understood that the answer might change the entire evening. Every conversation in the lobby seemed to disappear at once. Employees stood motionless behind the front desk. Guests who had spent the last 20 minutes quietly judging the situation now watched with open curiosity. William Carter's question lingered in the air. Please tell me they took good care of you. Nobody knew where to look. Some looked at Evelyn Harper. Others looked toward Monica Hayes. A few looked anywhere except the front desk. The silence itself became an answer. William noticed it immediately. Years of leading people had taught him how to read a room long before anyone spoke. His eyes moved slowly toward Monica. She felt her stomach tighten. Yet before he could say anything, Evelyn smiled gently. Everyone has been working very hard. The response surprised several people. It was not exactly an answer, but it prevented immediate embarrassment. William studied her face for a moment. He knew Evelyn well enough to recognize when she was protecting someone. That realization told him more than words ever could. Nearby guests began exchanging looks. They sensed the same thing. Evelyn was choosing grace when she had every opportunity to expose what had happened. William nodded slowly. That sounds like you. A faint smile returned to his face. The tension eased slightly, but only slightly. The mystery remained. Why would the owner of the hotel greet this seemingly ordinary guest with such respect? The younger front desk employee glanced again at the reservation system. The restricted booking profile was still open. More details had appeared. His eyes widened further. He looked toward Monica. There is more. Monica stepped closer and read the screen. This time her expression changed completely. The reservation was not simply important. It was extraordinary. The suite assigned to Evelyn was one of the most exclusive accommodations in the entire hotel. It was reserved only a few times each year. Special instructions accompanied the booking. Every detail emphasized privacy and personal hospitality. Monica felt heat rising to her face. The woman she had nearly dismissed from the lobby had been assigned the highest level of guest treatment available. Across the room, William and Evelyn continued talking. Their conversation appeared relaxed and familiar. Not the relationship between a hotel owner and a customer. Something deeper. Something older. A businessman standing near the concierge desk finally spoke aloud. Who is she? The question spread through the lobby almost instantly. Other guests were wondering the same thing. William heard it. He smiled faintly. That is actually a very good question. More heads turned. Even employees leaned closer. Evelyn looked almost amused. William. He laughed softly. What? They are curious. The reaction from the crowd was immediate. People wanted answers. Yet Evelyn remained completely calm. She looked around the lobby, taking in the marble floors, the chandeliers, the restored artwork, and the historic photographs. Her expression carried a strange sense of familiarity. Almost affection. William noticed where she was looking. You still inspect everything the moment you arrive. A few guests laughed politely, though most remained confused. Evelyn smiled. Old habits. William shook his head. Some habits built this place. The statement landed heavily. Several employees exchanged startled looks. Monica felt another wave of uncertainty. Built this place. The words echoed in her mind. Not stayed here. Not visited here. Built this place. The distinction was impossible to ignore. Suddenly, the bellman remembered Evelyn's comments about the original fountain, the dedication plaque, the restored entrance, every hidden detail she had recognized earlier. Those observations no longer felt random. They felt personal. The realization began spreading quietly through the lobby. Guests sensed it too. Piece by piece, the image they had formed of Evelyn Harper was beginning to collapse. And standing behind the front desk, Monica Hayes was starting to realize that the woman she judged within seconds of arrival might have a connection to the hotel far greater than anyone had imagined. The lobby no longer felt like a place where travelers checked in and out. It felt like a room suspended between two versions of reality. One version was the story everyone had believed when Evelyn Harper first walked through the doors. The other was beginning to emerge piece by piece, and with every passing minute, it became harder to ignore. William Carter glanced around the lobby and immediately recognized the curiosity on every face. Guests wanted answers. Employees wanted answers. Even Monica Hayes, despite her efforts to remain composed, clearly wanted answers. William smiled toward Evelyn. You know they are not going to stop wondering. Evelyn laughed softly. That sounds like their problem. A ripple of quiet laughter moved through the crowd. The exchange felt familiar, the kind shared by people who had known each other for many years. That only deepened the mystery. The businessman near the concierge desk finally spoke again. How do you two know each other? Several guests nodded. It was the question everyone wanted answered. William looked toward Evelyn as if offering her the opportunity to respond first. She shook her head gently. You tell it. William smiled. That is dangerous. More laughter followed. Then his expression softened. He turned toward the historic photographs displayed along the wall. 23 years ago, this hotel was in serious trouble. The room immediately grew quiet. Employees exchanged surprised looks. Most had never heard him speak publicly about those years. William continued. The building was beautiful. The location was excellent. But financially, we were running out of time. Even Monica leaned closer. This was part of the hotel's history that very few people knew. William pointed toward one of the oldest photographs. Investors were leaving. Renovations had stalled. We were weeks away from making decisions that would have changed the entire future of this property. The businessman frowned. I thought the hotel had always been successful. William shook his head. Not even close. The revelation surprised many people. The Grand Crescent Hotel was now considered one of the finest properties in the region. Imagining it struggling seemed almost impossible. William looked back at Evelyn. Then someone walked through those doors. The lobby became completely silent. Several guests instinctively turned toward Evelyn. She looked slightly uncomfortable again. William continued anyway. Most people saw an ordinary visitor. He smiled. That seems to be a recurring theme. A few nervous laughs followed. Monica lowered her eyes. The comment was not directed at her, yet it felt personal. William gestured toward Evelyn. She spent 2 days walking through the property. The bellman immediately remembered how naturally Evelyn had recognized details from decades ago. Suddenly it made sense. William continued. She noticed problems nobody else noticed. Opportunities nobody else saw. She understood the building better than many of the people managing it. Guests stared. Employees stared. The story was transforming everything they thought they knew. William folded his hands. More importantly, she introduced us to people who believed this hotel deserved a future. A woman standing near the lounge area looked stunned. She helped save the hotel? William smiled. That would be a very modest way of describing it. The answer landed heavily. Monica felt her pulse quicken. Every hidden clue from the evening suddenly connected. The fountain, the plaque, the restored entrance, the familiarity, the confidence. None of it had been coincidence. Evelyn had not been admiring history. She had lived it. And as that realization spread through the lobby, more and more people began understanding that the woman they had quietly judged for her appearance might be one of the most important figures the hotel had ever known. The realization spread through the lobby like a wave. Guests who had viewed Evelyn Harper as an ordinary traveler were now looking at her with entirely different eyes. Employees who had barely acknowledged her arrival were suddenly replaying every interaction in their minds. Yet the most surprising part of the scene was Evelyn herself. She showed no sign of satisfaction, no sign of triumph. She stood quietly beside William Carter as though the conversation concerned someone else. That calmness only deepened the respect forming around her. William glanced toward the historic photographs again. There is one part of the story most people do not know. The crowd immediately focused on him. Even hotel guests arriving through the front entrance slowed down after sensing that something unusual was happening. William smiled faintly. After she helped save the hotel, several investors wanted to recognize her publicly. Evelyn closed her eyes for a moment. William. A few people laughed softly. Clearly she knew exactly where this story was heading. William ignored the warning. She refused every offer. The room grew quiet again. Monica Hayes frowned. Refused. William nodded. No plaque. No press conference. No public announcement. Several guests exchanged confused looks. One woman near the lounge area spoke first. Why would anyone do that? William looked toward Evelyn. That is a question I asked many times. Evelyn smiled. The hotel needed support. I did not need attention. The answer seemed almost impossible for some people to understand. In a world where recognition often mattered as much as achievement, her response felt unusual. Yet it explained everything. It explained why most employees had never heard her name. It explained why guests had no idea who she was. It explained why she had entered the lobby unnoticed. William folded his hands. Most people believe leadership means standing in front of a crowd. He shook his head. Some of the most important leadership happens where nobody is watching. Several employees nodded unconsciously. The statement carried weight coming from someone who had built a successful business. Nearby, the younger front desk employee continued reviewing the reservation profile. Another detail had become visible. His eyes widened again. Monica. She turned toward him. What now? He pointed silently at the screen. Monica leaned closer and read the note. This time she nearly stopped breathing. The reservation had not been created by an assistant. It had not been booked through a travel agency. It had been entered personally by William Carter weeks earlier. The instructions were unmistakable. Prepare the founder suite. Ensure complete privacy. Personal guest of ownership. Monica felt her stomach drop. The founder suite was not simply luxurious. It was symbolic. Very few people ever stayed there. It was reserved for individuals whose connection to the hotel's history carried extraordinary significance. She slowly looked up from the screen toward Evelyn. The contrast between appearance and reality had never felt more dramatic. A woman she had nearly redirected out of the lobby was being welcomed into one of the most prestigious suites in the building. William noticed Monica's expression and seemed to understand immediately. Yet he said nothing. He simply continued speaking with Evelyn. The restraint somehow made the moment even more powerful. No public correction. No humiliation. No accusation. Just truth revealing itself piece by piece. Guests watched the scene unfold with growing admiration. The bellman remembered every detail Evelyn had recognized earlier. The concierge remembered how calmly she had accepted being asked to step aside. The businessman remembered assuming she could not possibly belong there. One by one, people began confronting their own judgments. And standing behind the front desk, Monica Hayes finally realized that the woman she had measured in seconds had spent decades helping create the very place Monica was so proud to represent. The atmosphere inside the lobby had transformed completely. Earlier, people had watched Evelyn Harper with curiosity mixed with doubt. Now they watched her with respect mixed with disbelief. The shift was impossible to miss. Employees who had barely acknowledged her arrival now found themselves listening carefully to every word she spoke. Guests who had assumed she was in the wrong place were quietly reconsidering how quickly they had formed that judgment. Yet through it all, Evelyn remained exactly the same. She did not stand taller. She did not speak louder. She did not take advantage of the attention suddenly surrounding her. William Carter seemed to notice that as well. You know, he said with a smile, most people would enjoy this moment a little more. Evelyn laughed softly. That sounds exhausting. Several guests laughed with her. The simple response broke some of the tension still lingering in the room. For the first time all evening, people began relaxing. The mystery had not disappeared, but admiration was slowly replacing suspicion. A woman staying at the hotel approached cautiously. Mrs. Harper, may I ask something? Evelyn nodded. Of course. The woman smiled. If you helped save this place, why did nobody know? The question immediately captured everyone's attention. It was the same question many people were asking themselves. Evelyn glanced around the lobby. Her eyes briefly rested on the historic photographs. the restored artwork, and the guests moving through the space. Because the hotel was never supposed to be about me. The answer was simple. Yet the room fell silent again. William smiled knowingly. He had heard versions of that answer for years. Evelyn continued. The people who worked here built its reputation. The guests created its stories. The city gave it meaning. She shrugged gently. I only helped when help was needed. Several employees exchanged looks. The humility felt genuine because it clearly was. No performance. No false modesty. Just honesty. Meanwhile, Monica Hayes remained behind the front desk. She listened carefully to every word. The more she learned, the more difficult it became to ignore her own actions earlier that evening. She remembered asking Evelyn to step aside. She remembered doubting her reservation. She remembered silently deciding she did not fit the image of an important guest. Those memories felt heavier now. A younger employee quietly approached Monica. Are you okay? Monica looked toward Evelyn. No. The honesty surprised even her. Across the lobby, William turned toward the front desk. His expression softened. He understood exactly what was happening. People were not merely learning who Evelyn was. They were learning something about themselves. The businessman who had watched the situation unfold from the lounge area suddenly shook his head. I thought I had her figured out within 10 seconds. A few nearby guests nodded. One woman smiled awkwardly. I think many of us did. The admission spread through the crowd. It was uncomfortable, but impossible to deny. Assumptions had filled the lobby long before facts ever appeared. Evelyn heard the comments and simply smiled. There was no satisfaction in her expression, no desire to prove anyone wrong. If anything, she seemed more interested in making people feel comfortable than making them regret their mistakes. That quality only increased the respect surrounding her. Then Monica slowly stepped away from the front desk. Several employees noticed immediately. William noticed too. The room grew quieter as she approached. Every person who had witnessed the events of the evening understood what was about to happen. The woman who had judged Evelyn first was finally walking toward her. And for the first time since Evelyn entered the hotel, Monica Hayes had no authority to stand behind. Only the truth. Monica Hayes stopped a few feet in front of Evelyn Harper and suddenly seemed unsure what to do next. Earlier that evening, she had been confident in every decision she made. She had believed she understood the situation. She had believed she was protecting the standards of the hotel. Now she stood face to face with a woman whose connection to the property ran deeper than almost anyone in the building. Around them, conversations faded once again. Guests noticed the moment immediately. Employees noticed it even faster. The entire lobby seemed to pause. Monica took a slow breath. Mrs. Harper. Evelyn smiled warmly. Please. Evelyn is fine. The kindness in the response only made Monica more uncomfortable. She lowered her eyes briefly before looking up again. I owe you an apology. Nobody interrupted. The silence surrounding them felt respectful rather than tense. Monica continued. When you arrived, I made assumptions about you before I knew anything about you. Her voice remained steady, but the regret behind it was impossible to miss. I decided where you belonged before I had any facts. Several employees lowered their eyes. The words felt familiar because many of them had done the same thing. Monica glanced toward the front desk. I questioned your reservation. I asked you to step aside. I treated you as though you were a problem that needed to be solved. The honesty landed heavily. Guests who had witnessed the events from the beginning remembered every moment. The businessman from the lounge area looked visibly uncomfortable. The woman waiting for valet service folded her arms and listened carefully. Monica shook her head. The truth is, none of those decisions were based on who you are. She paused. They were based on what I thought you looked like. A hush settled over the lobby. The admission carried more power because it was spoken openly. No excuses. No attempts to justify her behavior. Just the truth. Evelyn listened quietly. Her expression never changed. No anger. No satisfaction. No desire to make the moment more painful. Monica finally finished. I am truly sorry. For a few seconds nobody spoke. Then Evelyn smiled gently. Thank you. Monica blinked. The answer felt almost too simple. Evelyn continued. That takes courage. Several guests exchanged surprised looks. They had expected criticism, perhaps even a lesson. Instead, Evelyn offered understanding. Monica looked genuinely confused. You are not upset? Evelyn laughed softly. I am human. Of course I was disappointed. The honesty surprised everyone. She continued. But disappointment passes. What matters is what people do afterward. The words settled across the lobby like a calm wave. William Carter smiled quietly from nearby. He had heard Evelyn express the same philosophy for years. One of the younger employees suddenly spoke. "You are not angry at anyone." Evelyn turned toward him. "Why would I spend my evening doing that?" A few people laughed. The tension that had dominated the lobby for hours finally began to dissolve. Even Monica smiled. It was a small smile, but it was genuine. Evelyn looked around the room. Everyone makes assumptions sometimes. Several guests nodded immediately. She continued. The important thing is being willing to reconsider them. The lesson felt directed at everyone rather than any single person. That made it even more effective. Nobody felt attacked, yet everyone understood. William glanced around the lobby and noticed the change. Employees stood a little taller. Guests looked more thoughtful. The entire atmosphere felt lighter. The truth had revealed itself without humiliation. Dignity had been restored without revenge. And as Monica stood beside Evelyn rather than opposite her, the lobby of the Grand Crescent Hotel became quieter than it had been all evening. Not because people had nothing to say, because they were finally listening. The lobby gradually returned to life, but something about it felt different now. Conversations resumed. Guests continued checking in. Bell carts rolled across the marble floor. Yet beneath the ordinary movement of the evening, a quiet lesson lingered in the air. People carried it with them whether they realized it or not. William Carter glanced around the room and smiled. "I think this may be the most educational check-in we have ever hosted." Laughter spread through the lobby. Even Monica Hayes laughed. The tension that had once defined the evening had completely disappeared. In its place stood something far more valuable. Perspective. William turned toward Evelyn Harper. "There is one thing I have never understood." Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "Only one." More laughter followed. William shook his head. "After everything you did for this place, why do you still arrive looking like you could walk unnoticed through any city in America?" Evelyn smiled warmly. "Because that is exactly what I am." The answer puzzled a few guests. William noticed. Evelyn continued before anyone could ask another question. "The work we do is important. The titles we hold can be important. But neither of those things should become our identity." The room grew quiet again. Not because anyone was forced to listen, because everyone wanted to. Evelyn looked toward the hotel entrance where new guests were arriving. Most people spend their lives trying to be recognized. She paused. "I spent mine trying to be useful." The simplicity of the statement seemed to affect everyone differently. Some nodded. Others reflected silently. Monica lowered her eyes for a moment. She would remember those words for a very long time. William smiled. "That explains why you never wanted public recognition." Evelyn shrugged gently. "Buildings are remembered because people care for them, not because one person takes credit." Nearby employees exchanged thoughtful looks. The statement felt especially meaningful coming from someone who could have claimed far more recognition than she ever did. A few minutes later, the concierge approached. "Mrs. Harper, your suite is ready." Evelyn smiled. "Thank you." This time the greeting carried genuine warmth. No uncertainty, no hesitation, just respect. As she prepared to leave for the evening, several guests approached one by one. Some thanked her for helping preserve the hotel. Others simply wished her a pleasant stay. She greeted each person with the same kindness she had shown from the beginning. Nothing about her demeanor changed now that everyone knew who she was. That consistency became perhaps the most powerful revelation of all. William accompanied her toward the private elevator reserved for special guests. Before the doors opened, Monica stepped forward once more. "Evelyn." Evelyn turned. Monica smiled. "Welcome back." Evelyn smiled in return. "Thank you." The exchange lasted only a few seconds, but it felt significant. Not because an apology had been accepted, because understanding had replaced assumption. Respect had replaced judgment. The elevator doors opened. Evelyn stepped inside. William nodded respectfully as the doors began to close. Around the lobby, employees returned to their duties. Guests returned to their evenings. Yet many continued glancing toward the elevator long after it disappeared from view. They had arrived expecting an ordinary night in a luxury hotel. Instead, they had witnessed something far more memorable. A reminder that appearances reveal very little. That dignity does not announce itself. That character often arrives wearing ordinary clothes and carrying an unremarkable bag. And as the Grand Crescent Hotel settled back into its familiar rhythm. One truth remained quietly behind. The most valuable people in a room are not always the ones who look important. Sometimes they are the ones who never needed to look important at all.